As the war in Iran seems to have become a hot war again today, with U.S. and Iranian ships firing at each other in the Strait of Hormuz, President Trump has decided at the same time that he's going to pull 5,000 U.S. troops out of Germany. Now, wait, why does that matter for the Iran war? Germany isn't Iran. Well, when Trump started the war in Iran, without hardening or protecting any of our gazillion military bases and installations all over the Middle East, which were now in the range of fire for Iranian missiles and drones, oops. Where do you think they sent the U.S. troops who had to be evacuated really quickly off of all of those undefended bases all over the Middle East? Where'd they send them? They sent them to Germany, because we have a really big troop presence in Germany and lots of facilities for our troops in Germany. There have been hundreds of U.S. troops wounded in Trump's Iran war so far. Where do U.S. troops get evacuated to when they're wounded in the Middle East? They get evacuated to Germany, because we have such a big troop presence there and lots of military facilities there to handle those things. Trump is now sending 5,000 American troops home from that crucial position. Trump is simultaneously re-upping the war in the Middle East and also shrinking our ability to support that war from the place where we support a war like that, which is Germany. Why did he decide to do this now? Simultaneously upping the Iran war and also taking away the military's ability to support the troops that are there fighting the war. Why did he decide to do this now? Where did he get this idea? Well, you know, little clue in the fact that he's done this exact same thing before. In his first term in 2020, you might remember this, it went down kind of exactly the same way. In 2020, Trump announced that he was going to take thousands of U.S. troops out of Germany. And the Pentagon was totally blindsided. Nobody could figure out why he announced it. Turns out he had just talked to Vladimir Putin right before making that announcement about pulling U.S. troops out of Germany. Of course, you know, Putin, more than anything, wants U.S. troops out of all of Europe. So he was delighted. Then that was in June 2020. Then the following month, July 2020, Trump talked to Putin again. And right after talking to Putin again, Trump reiterated more forcefully this time, I really mean it. I want those thousands of U.S. troops taken out of Germany. The only reason it ultimately didn't happen back then is because that was already late in the year in 2020, and then Trump lost the presidential election, and President Joe Biden countermanded Trump's ridiculous, nonsensical order. But now Trump's back in the White House, and so here we are again, and it's gone down exactly the same way. The president publicly announced that he wants thousands of U.S. troops pulled out of Germany. The Pentagon, once again, totally blindsided. Nobody knows why he has done this. Then it turns out, it emerges that he made this announcement about pulling U.S. troops out of Germany right after he got off the phone with Vladimir Putin. Pulling U.S. troops out of Germany is something that Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin really, really want. Something that would be terrible for the United States, but really good for Vladimir Putin. And somehow, magically, every time Trump talks to Vladimir Putin, he emerges from that phone call with this same idea over and over again, to give the Kremlin what it wants, even though it is terrible for the United States, and particularly terrible for the United States military right now, while they're fighting a war in the Middle East that Trump started for who knows what reason. They're not good at this. The latest Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll has Trump negative 25 overall. He's 25 points underwater on his overall approval rating. And that's kind of the high point for him in this poll. Minus 25 is kind of as good as it gets. On the economy, his approval rating is 31 points underwater. On the Iran war, his approval rating is 33 points underwater. On inflation, Trump's approval rating is 45 points underwater. On Trump's handling of the cost of living, which is effectively what he ran on to get a second term in the White House, Trump is 53 points underwater. 76% of the country disapproves of Trump's handling of the cost of living. He's minus 53. As, among other things, his war of whim, his war of impulse, this war of choice that he doesn't even seem to understand, drags on with no end in sight, and the energy crisis he caused by starting this inexplicable war just gets worse and worse, with gas prices continuing their steady, steep rise. They are really, really not great at this. They're not good at this. We're also now seeing every day the practical impact of what it means that they kicked off this second presidential term for Donald Trump by wholesale breaking the government in every way they could figure out to do it. And we're seeing that in very practical ways. Like, regardless of your politics, regardless of your ideological cant, we're seeing it in very practical consequences. Last month's tornado outbreak in Kansas City, Kansas. Trees damaged, homes damaged, mobile homes and RVs overturned, people injured. Turns out people had basically no warning of those tornadoes last month. And why not? Right? Usually a tornado watch goes up a few hours before storms are anticipated. But in the Kansas City, Kansas tornadoes last month, they only got the tornado watch up about 30 minutes before the first storm hit. And that's not the warning, hey, it's coming. That's the watch, which usually gives you hours of notice to let you know that tornadoes are a possibility that day. They only got 30 minutes before the watch. No time to get ready, which undoubtedly affected people's preparedness and undoubtedly affected the amount of damage and potentially the number of injuries. What happened there? Why did the people get no notice? Quote, many forecasting offices in the Great Plains did not launch weather balloons at 7 a.m. that day, as they have for decades. And why didn't the National Weather Service offices launch the weather balloons that morning, as they always have every 7 a.m. every day for decades? Well, thank Donald Trump. Weather balloon launches was one of the first things that had to go when Donald Trump, in his infinite wisdom, started radically cutting the staffing levels at the National Weather Service and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Why did he cut those jobs? What do you have against weather forecasting and tornado watches? Who knows? But there's your tornado warning system on Trumpism. And again, this isn't abstract. This isn't theoretical. It isn't ideological. It's just failure. It's what happens when you break things. Turns out then they're broken, so they don't work when you need them to work. They really are not great at this.